The Untold Truth of Bob Ross. Bob Ross has experienced a notable resurgence in contemporary popular culture. His image graces a wide array of products, and his brand management enterprise continues to capitalize on merchandising possibilities, persisting long after his passing. He has evolved into an emblem of optimism and tranquility amid the tumultuous backdrop of today's world, aligning seamlessly with the ethos of internet culture and merchandise. In this exploration, we will uncover lesser-known aspects of the enigmatic Bob Ross. Bob Ross is a familiar and beloved figure to many, renowned for his joyful painting of idyllic landscapes. However, to artists, Ross is notable for his distinctive wet-on-wet painting technique, where fresh layers of paint are applied to still wet ones to create the final artwork. This technique has a rich history dating back to the 1300s and was even employed by French Impressionists until the early 20th century, though some critics deemed it unsuitable for serious artists. Bob Ross challenged this perception by popularizing wet-on-wet painting. Bob Ross's journey into painting began in Alaska, where he learned this unique approach from Bill Alexander, a somewhat famous wet-on-wet painter, who had appeared on public television in the 1970s. Ross initially expressed admiration for his mentor, dedicating an episode of The Joy of Painting to Alexander in Season 2. However, their relationship soured over time, with Ross eventually refusing even to mention Alexander's name, considering him a major competitor. Surprisingly, Bill Alexander seemed to accept this rivalry, asserting that he had invented wet-on-wet painting and trained Ross, yet he was perturbed by Ross's belief that he could outdo him. This competitive dynamic in the art world echoes rivalries found in various fields, even suggesting that not everyone adored icons like Bob Ross or Mr. Rogers. Bob Ross's earlier life contrasts with his gentle public persona. Born in Daytona Beach, Florida, he made his way to frigid Alaska through military service, enlisting in the Air Force at 18 and eventually achieving the rank of Master Sergeant during his 20-year tenure. In the military, Ross was known for his strict, no-nonsense approach, demanding discipline from those under his command. However, upon leaving the Air Force, he made a personal vow never to raise his voice again, which played a significant role in his calm and soothing on-screen presence. Bob Ross's distinctive afro hairstyle is iconic as his painting technique. Surprisingly, he got the perm to save money, avoiding the expense of frequent haircuts. He disliked the curls, but couldn't change his signature look due to its association with his brand. This afro became the symbol of his company. While Bob Ross achieved fame through his PBS show, The Joy of Painting, it's worth noting that he didn't receive any payment for his work on the program, as PBS is a non-profit network that relies partly on government funding. Instead, Ross generated income through teaching, book sales, and selling his paintings. He also offered videos that delved into his painting system, providing more detailed insights into his artistic style. In 2014, the statistical website 538 conducted a fascinating analysis of Bob Ross's iconic television show Joy of Painting. Despite the show airing 403 times, it was revealed that Bob Ross himself painted in 381 of those episodes, as the others featured guest artists. 538's meticulous examination found that there were a staggering 3,224 potential variations of his paintings. Bob Ross had a clear preference for painting trees, as an astonishing 91% of his artworks included at least one tree. In contrast, flowers are rarely featured, appearing in only 2% of his paintings. And palm trees received a similar amount of attention, possibly because they were ubiquitous in his Florida surroundings. Notably, if Ross painted one tree, there was a 93% likelihood he would paint a second one, as he believed trees should never stand alone. While Ross is often associated with happy little clouds, they appeared in his paintings only 44% of the time. Surprisingly, human figures were exceedingly rare in his works, with only one painting featuring a solitary cowboy silhouette. Additionally, of the 18% of paintings featuring cabins, only one had a chimney, implying that Ross may have depicted a colder environment. Locating an original Bob Ross painting is no easy task. During the 381 episodes he personally painted, Ross created 3 versions of each artwork, one painted on camera, one as a pre-painting guide, and one for close-up shots and later photography. This means he produced a total of 1,143 paintings. Many of these were donated to PBS stations, which subsequently auctioned them off. However, the lack of clear provenance, proof of origin from the artist, poses challenges for collectors in the art world. Those interested in owning an original Bob Ross painting would need both the means and evidence of its origin. These artworks can fetch prices exceeding $10,000. The appeal of Bob Ross extended far beyond his artistic technique. His distinctive appearance and soothing voice captivated audiences. His calm, reassuring tones had a remarkable ability to relax viewers. Some viewers experienced autonomous sensory meridian response, or ASMR, while watching Bob Ross paint. ASMR is characterized by pleasurable tingling sensations, often associated with intimacy. Though there is limited scientific evidence for ASMR, individuals who experience it find it deeply satisfying. Bob Ross's voice had a similar effect on people, particularly those with post-traumatic stress disorder or insomnia, helping them find solace and relaxation. Despite being an American cultural icon, Bob Ross enjoyed a global following. Certified Bob Ross instructors can be found worldwide, but the phenomenon found exceptional popularity in Japan, where the show was aired twice daily on NHK, a Japanese television station. In addition to his passion for painting, Bob Ross had a deep love for animals. While starting his painting show in Muncie, Indiana, he actively supported animal rescue organizations, often featuring animals on his program. In Orlando, Florida, he transformed his backyard into an animal rehabilitation center, providing care for various creatures including squirrels, birds, and other wildlife, demonstrating his unique and genuine commitment to the welfare of animals. Bob Ross, the iconic painter known for his soothing voice and joyful landscapes, had an interesting life story and left a lasting legacy. In the 403 episodes of Joy of Painting, his most frequent guest was his son, Stephen Ross. Despite Stephen's unconventional appearance, he possessed a painting technique that matched his father's skill. Stephen Ross, along with Bob's stepson Morgan Ross, continues to paint today, maintaining a low profile online. However, Stephen briefly gained notoriety for making suggestive references in one of his Joy of Painting appearances, becoming a short-lived meme. During his 1994 season, Bob Ross's health was deteriorating, although viewers may not have noticed any difference in his demeanor. His final episode aired on April 5, 1994, but few were aware of his battle with lymphoma. His wife Jane had also succumbed to cancer a few years prior. Bob Ross, originally from Daytona Beach, Florida, made his home in the greater Orlando area, and, fittingly, his final resting place is in the small town of Gotha, just west of Orlando. In a picturesque cemetery, fans pay tribute by leaving their own artwork, along with miniature animal figurines and paintbrushes at his gravesite. Bob Ross's popularity has only grown since his passing. He has become an enduring pop culture icon, recognized for his distinctive afro and calming presence. His image has been used in various forms, including Funko Pop figurines. The character Deadpool parodied Bob Ross in a teaser trailer for Deadpool 2, further cementing Ross's cultural relevance. Bob Ross did not complete high school, dropping out in 9th grade. However, he worked with his father and developed his artistic talent over the years. Ross held his palette in his left hand, a detail that some speculate he may have hidden due to self-consciousness, although it did not affect his painting, as he was right-handed. Ross's television show, The Joy of Painting, had a simple premise that defied conventional television norms, yet it captivated audiences with its unique charm. His first episode closely resembled his last, as Ross was a natural on camera, and his calm, folksy style resonated with viewers. One of Ross's lasting legacies is his line of art supplies, which are widely available and well regarded in art supply stores. His products, including his famous Prussian blue paint, are still used by artists today. For those aspiring to paint like Bob Ross, there are workshops and certification programs available in New Smyrna Beach, Florida, allowing enthusiasts to learn his techniques and become certified Bob Ross instructors. While it may come at a cost, the opportunity to channel the spirit of Bob Ross is priceless to his devoted fans. Bob Ross, the iconic painter known for his tranquil TV presence, was a deeply private individual when it came to his personal life. There remains some mystery surrounding his marriages and children, but certain details have come to light. Bob Ross was married 3 times. His first marriage was to Vicki Ridge in 1965, which eventually ended in divorce. He then married Jane Zanardelli Worstell in Spokane, Washington in 1977. Tragically, Jane passed away in August 1992. Subsequently, in 1993, Bob Ross married Linda Brown, according to a woman who appears to be Vicki Ross, Bob's first wife, in her social media posts. Vicki mentions that Linda worked at the doctor's office that Bob frequented. However, their marriage was brief, as Bob Ross passed away shortly after. According to Vicki Ross, Bob had one stepson, Morgan, from his marriage to Jane. Additionally, Vicki and Bob had one natural child together, a son named Steve. Interestingly, Vicki claims that Steve's real name is Robert. According to a commenter on social media who purports to be Vicki, Bob Ross may have had another son named Bobby, although this individual allegedly did not use the Ross last name. The family relationships appear to be quite complex and tangled, making it challenging to discern the full extent of Bob Ross's family tree. In recent years, the most notable aspect of Bob Ross's legacy has been the business side. The company responsible for managing his legacy has become embroiled in a significant federal case, despite the fact that Bob Ross passed away quite some time ago. This legal situation adds an intriguing layer to the ongoing story of the beloved painter's posthumous impact. The business side of Bob Ross's story takes an unexpected turn, beginning in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, rather than his hometown of Orlando, Florida, or other places closely associated with him. It all started with a chance encounter between Bob Ross, then an Air Force Master Sergeant, and Wilhelm Bill Alexander, a former Nazi conscript turned painter in 1978. At that time, Bob had recently returned from a deployment in Thailand following the Vietnam War and had been stationed at Fairchild Air Force Base in Spokane, Washington. Despite his demanding role as a first sergeant and the responsibilities of being a single father to his son Steve, Bob continued to nurture his passion for painting. His interest was rekindled when he discovered Bill Alexander on PBS, where Bill demonstrated his unique wet-on-wet oil painting technique, allowing him to complete a landscape painting in under 30 minutes. Bob was amazed by Bill's speed, especially since he took days to achieve similar results. Fortunately, Bill was conducting a seminar near Bob's military base, offering Bob a chance to both learn from the master and potentially secure a job as his apprentice. As retirement from the military loomed, Bob envisioned a future as an apprentice to Bill. On the surface, Bob and Bill seemed like an unlikely pair. Bob was the archetypal all-American military man, while Bill was a stocky German immigrant with a traumatic past from World War II. Bill's journey included witnessing the horrors of war on both the Eastern and Western fronts, being wounded in action, and eventually finding himself in an American POW camp in France. To gain favor with American officers, he used his artistic talents to paint portraits of them and their loved ones. This ultimately led to his immigration to Canada and then to the United States. Despite their outward differences, Bob and Bill had several commonalities. Both had military backgrounds and had reservations about it. They shared a sense of humor, often indulging in humorous stories and jokes. They were natural showmen and skilled storytellers, often adding a touch of whimsy and exaggeration to their tales. Most importantly, they shared a deep reverence for nature and its creations, evident in their art, their profound appreciation for the natural world, and their mutual love for animals. After Bob Ross's transformative workshop with Bill Alexander, his passion for painting became an all-encompassing obsession. While stationed at Eielson Air Force Base in Fairbanks, Alaska, he dedicated every available moment to art. He ventured into various artistic endeavors, including sketching greeting cards, donating paintings for fundraisers, and starting a business focused on creative landscape paintings on gold pans, a popular souvenir in Alaska. Additionally, Bob received a job offer from Bill Alexander's company as he was preparing to leave the military. Bill sought to expand his reach and needed more instructors to teach his unique wet-on-wet oil painting technique and promote his custom art supplies designed for this method. Bob made a deal with his wife, promising to dedicate a year to pursuing his artistic dreams. If he ran out of money within that time, he would seek conventional employment. However, Bob never returned home to fulfill that promise. Leaving his son Steve in the care of his second wife Jane, who worked as a Defense Department civilian, Bob embarked on a new chapter in his life. He took on various manual labor tasks, including mixing and canning paints at Bill's headquarters in Salem, Oregon, before becoming one of Bill's 2 traveling master apprentices. This role required Bob to spend over 8 months a year on the road, setting up workshops in various venues, collecting fees, selling art supplies, teaching painting classes, and then moving to the next location. While Bob had already mastered the fundamentals of the Alexander technique, he needed to refine his performance skills. Bill had developed a distinctive style characterized by phrases like "happy little" and "almighty," and encouraging his audience with the boisterous "fire in." Bob adapted this language but used his mellower voice and embraced his laid-back style. He was often referred to as the Happy Alaskan, a playful twist on Bill's title of the Happy Painter. While he incorporated Bill's terminology, he abandoned the aggressive "fire in" catchphrase. During this period, Bob fully embraced his role as Bill's disciple and credited him for his artistic growth. He even dedicated his second instructional book to Bill, expressing deep gratitude for the influence and inspiration he had received. However, a tragic event would soon alter Bob's course. The catalyst for the establishment of Bob Ross Incorporated was a parent's worst nightmare, the loss of a child. In the summer of 1981, Annette and Walt Kowalski, a middle-class couple residing near Washington, D.C., experienced this devastating loss. Walt Kowalski, a CIA employee, occasionally shared stories from his time in the agency, and those who knew him noted his cold and calculating demeanor, reminiscent of a shark's gaze. Walt Kowalski, known for his cold and calculating demeanor, had a contrasting quality, an unwavering devotion to his wife, Annette. Their eldest son tragically lost his life in a car accident when he was just 25 years old. This devastating loss plunged Annette into a deep depression, rendering her almost catatonic. Her days consisted of lying on the couch, watching television, and struggling with the overwhelming grief. During this bleak period, Annette discovered Bill Alexander on television. Bill's energetic and optimistic approach to painting, along with his encouragement that anyone could be creative and that the world was full of wonder, provided a glimmer of hope in Annette's otherwise hopeless existence. Desperate to help his wife, Walt contacted Bill's company in search of a workshop Annette could attend. Regrettably, there were no workshops with Bill available, but one of his instructors, Bob Ross, was teaching a class in Clearwater, Florida, which was 1,000 miles away from their home. Walt insisted that Annette accompany him to his workshop, and they embarked on the lengthy journey to meet the relatively unknown Bob Ross. Annette, along with several other students, arrived at the hotel at the scheduled time. Bob introduced himself, shared his background and training with Bill, and expressed his passion for painting. By this time, Bob had shed his military appearance and embraced the style of the 1980s, complete with the frizzy man perm, which was in vogue at the time. Annette was captivated by Bob's presence, and she credited him with lifting her out of depression. She saw in Bob a unique ability to connect with people and suggested they bottle his charm and sell it. Annette and Walt approached Bob with an idea to come to Washington, D.C. and teach a few painting classes. Bob readily agreed, as more work was an opportunity he couldn't turn down. They set a date for Bob's visit to the Kowalskis' area. Engaging in business ventures was typical for the Kowalskis, who were always seeking opportunities to supplement Walt's government salary and support their children's college education. When a chance came their way, they embraced it. In their agreement with Bob, they would provide him with a stipend, room and board, and he would teach as many classes as they could arrange. Simultaneously, Annette and Walt invested in purchasing magic painting supplies from Bill's company to sell during the classes. Several months later, Bob arrived in Virginia, and they embarked on their business venture. They traveled along the East Coast, conducting workshops in cities like Philadelphia, Baltimore, D.C., and later expanding to Florida and Indiana. While some workshops were successful, others had minimal attendance, with one class even having just a single student, whom Bob dedicatedly taught. Despite the challenges, they slowly gained momentum as they traveled and learned the nuances of the hobby art business. With their newfound knowledge and determination, they hoped for opportunities beyond the teaching circuit. Their first significant break came thanks to Bill Alexander's generosity and willingness to assist them. They wanted to create a television promotional spot to boost interest in Bob's classes. Bill and Bob recorded a promo in which Bill symbolically handed over his brush to Bob, emphasizing Bob's capabilities with the brush in a light-hearted manner. Two significant breaks contributed to Bob Ross's burgeoning success, which was closely intertwined with Bill Alexander and their shared passion for painting and art supplies. The first break stemmed from their collaboration on commercials, where Bob effectively used Bill's name to promote his services, while Bill expanded his company's reach and propagated the Alexander technique through Bob. This partnership was also beneficial for selling the magic paints that were vital for sustaining their livelihood. At the time, Bill believed Bob would eventually succeed him in his company. The second stroke of luck occurred due to a fortuitous sequence of events. In 1983, while Bob and Annette were conducting a workshop in Muncie, Indiana, they approached the local PBS station, WIPB, to promote their class. By sheer coincidence, WIPB was one of only 10 PBS stations granted permission to air paid commercials as part of an initiative to bolster PBS finances. The station gladly aired a commercial featuring Bill and Bob on either side of Bill's show. This publicity led to a fully booked workshop, prompting Bob to return to WIPB with a pitch for his own show, The Joy of Painting. Bob had attempted a 13-episode series earlier that year in Virginia, but production quality issues had hindered its success. With WIPB's support and Bill's company financing the series, Bob's second attempt at The Joy of Painting was markedly improved. WIPB's facilities, though small, were technically advanced compared to the previous station. Production issues were resolved, canned background music was eliminated, and intro and closing credits were now in place. Bob's on-camera presence had also improved, and his down-to-earth demeanor resonated well with viewers, particularly in places like Indiana. He credited Bill for the precious gift of teaching him. The series initially aired on approximately 40 PBS stations, marking a modest but promising start. However, subsequent series quickly expanded to over 100 stations, eventually surpassing 200 within a few years. As Bob's influence grew, he became one of the top TV artists, regularly attending PBS and art supply conventions. Despite his rising star, Bill Alexander remained the brightest in the field. Bob's transition from being an apprentice to aspiring to become a master artist likely occurred gradually as opportunities presented themselves. The art world wasn't just about passion, it was also a profession, a means of earning a living. Bob understood that he, along with the Kowalskis and Bill Alexander, was involved in the art business. The appeal of the happy buck, as Bill called it, was undeniable. Dennis Kapp, CEO of the art supply company Martin F. Weber, recognized Bob's potential as an artist and approached him at a trade show. Over coffee, they swiftly struck a deal. Together, they embarked on creating a line of Bob Ross products. Their strategy closely mirrored Bill Alexander's product line, introducing their version of Bill's Magic White base coat, a similar range of brushes, and Bill's renowned oversized palette knife. When the Bob Ross product line was eventually released, it bore only minuscule differences from Bill's core products. In early 1985, Bob Ross, Jane Ross, Annette Kowalski, and Walt Kowalski filed incorporation papers in Virginia for Bob Ross Incorporated. While all four were technically equal partners, Bob was recognized as the primary decision-maker in the face of the company, given his prominence and significance to their venture. With the corporation officially established and Martin F. Weber developing a product line, preparations were underway for their official launch. As 1985 progressed, Bob continued to honor his commitments to Bill Alexander's company while subtly differentiating his approach. Instead of referring to Bill's Magic White, Bob began using the term liquid white for his own version of the product. The news of Bob's decision to strike out on his own deeply affected Bill Alexander. Bill, who had survived harrowing experiences and lived with a profound sense of gratitude, broke down and cried upon learning about Bob's departure. Other artists in the TV art industry, who often saw their peers as collaborators rather than competitors, were similarly dismayed by what had happened to Bill. They also observed a similar pattern when Annette launched a line of floral painting products that bore a striking resemblance to the work of established floral painting masters Gary and Catherine Jenkins. Bob Ross Incorporated's approach was perceived as aggressive in the genteel world of TV art. Joan Kowalski, now in charge of Bob Ross Incorporated, acknowledged that when starting a business, they set parameters based on their desired outcomes. Despite the company's aggressive reputation, Bob usually remained above the fray. He had abandoned screaming and yelling since retiring from the military and preferred to let Walt handle confrontational matters in contract negotiations. Nonetheless, Bob was a shrewd businessman. He actively participated in contract writing and review and had high standards for product development. Annette, in an interview with NPR, referred to him as a tyrant in this regard, adding that the company's success was partly due to his insistence on specific standards. The Joy of Painting became one of PBS's top shows nationwide, propelling Bob to celebrity status with appearances on various TV programs. Financially, by the late 1980s, each of the four partners was earning around $85,000 a year, equivalent to $180,000 today. Several exceptional years in the early 1990s saw Bob earning approximately $120,000 annually, equivalent to $220,000 today. In total, the company was generating roughly $500,000 annually for the partners to divide. Although money was not Bob's primary motivator, his financial stability afforded him the freedom to pursue his interests. He returned to the Orlando area, his hometown, engaging in hobbies that combined his Florida heritage and artistic accomplishments. He dedicated resources to rehabilitating injured animals, collecting Victorian opalescent glass, and indulged in his passion for hot rods, tearing through the streets in his 1969 Corvette with a Bob Ross vanity license plate. Bob also began dreaming bigger, considering ways to leverage his fame for new ventures and achieve a higher level of stardom from which he could make a positive impact on the world. By the early 1990s, he was planning a children's TV show called Bob's World, envisioned as a wilderness-themed version of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Bob Ross pursued various intriguing opportunities, including one in Branson, Missouri, where he collaborated with an Indiana family to develop a stage version of The Joy of Painting to accompany their Civil War musical. This venture aimed to capitalize on the tourist hub of Branson. However, not all was well within the partnership that had fueled Bob's rise to fame. Tensions emerged and eventually escalated into a battle for control over Bob's name and likeness. The decline seemed to begin in 1992 when Bob's second wife passed away from cancer. Her shares were divided equally among the remaining 3 partners, reducing Bob's ownership stake in the company he co-founded. Personal issues such as Bob's history of infidelity added to the strain. Furthermore, Bob's declining health became a significant factor. He had faced health issues throughout his life and had a heart attack in the mid-1980s. In early 1994, he received a grim lymphoma diagnosis, marking his second and final battle with cancer. Shortly before Bob's last The Joy of Painting episode aired, he received a fax from Walt Kowalski containing a 6-page contract. This contract aimed to secure complete and perpetual ownership of Bob Ross, his name, likeness, and creations by Bob Ross Incorporated. In exchange, Bob would receive only 1% of the company's revenues for the next decade. This request, in essence, sought to control everything Bob had created in his lifetime and use his name to sell future products. Bob did not sign this contract or any similar ones. As Bob's health deteriorated, he engaged in heated phone arguments with Walt about the company's future. According to Steve, Bob's son, these discussions often ended with Bob slamming the phone and expressing his frustration with the Kowalskis' dire desire to control his name and legacy. Joan Kowalski, while admitting she may not have been fully aware of the situation at the time due to her junior role in the company, recalled no tension during that period. In 1995, Bob's condition worsened. While fighting cancer, he made significant alterations to his will. A key change involved specifying that his name, likeness, and intellectual property rights would be inherited by Steve and one of Bob's half-brothers. Annette Kowalski, who had previously been in line to administer his estate, was no longer mentioned. Instead, Bob's third wife, whom he married just 2 months before his passing, played a prominent role in his estate. Bob's final days were a mix of rapid decline and lingering suffering, typical for cancer patients. He lost his hair, a defining feature, and experienced rapid weight loss. Steve returned home to assist his father, mirroring how Bob had cared for his mother during her final days. Despite his faith in God, Bob did not align with organized religion. His faith was grounded in the natural world and its wonders. He believed that everything, including humans, contained a part of God and that the vibration of God resided within all of us. What do you think about these untold things about Bob Ross? Leave your comments in the section below. We hope you have found this video helpful. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you like it. Thank you for watching this, and see you in the next videos. Goodbye.